Good afternoon. I'm Dan Bronson. The Godfather Chronicles. I am standing in a line, taking deep breaths to calm myself and clear my mind. Why? I am about to meet God. Finally, the person in front of me receives his blessing and moves on. It's my turn. I step up to him. He shaved his beard and put on some weight, but I immediately recognize him from a glimpse I once had of him. I open my mouth and nothing comes out. But he comes to my rescue with a smile and an outstretched hand. I can hardly believe it. I am at an Academy reception, shaking hands with Francis Ford Coppola, the cinematic god I've worshipped since experiencing the epiphany of the Rain People. I recover the power of speech and thank him for all the extraordinary films that he has made. I tell him I consider Godfather 1 and 2 back to back the greatest movie ever made. It is, in my opinion, a modern Greek tragedy. It is the sort of film fugue that Griffith tried and failed to create in Intolerance. And then, of course, I patiently explained to him what a mistake he made when he re-edited the films for television as the Godfather saga. Now, humbly submitting that the chronological presentation destroyed the fugue-like counterpoint of past and present and reduced the movie's dramatic tension. Coppola, grateful I'm sure for my probing criticism, as well as my generous praise, stammers thank you, and I move on. Several years pass. I am promoted from reader to executive story editor of Paramount Pictures, a member of the creative group, the cadre of men and women who buy screenplays, nurse them through development, and supervise their production and release. My immediate superior is Dawn Steele, the tough-as-nails lady who will later become the first woman ever to head a major studio. The big boss is Ned Tennant, a plain-speaking refugee from Universal, where he nurtured the careers of talents as diverse as George Lucas and John Hughes. More about them later. Right now, I am seated at a table on the terrace of the Beechwood Cafe, doing lunch, with Tom Wright. Energetic and animated, he's a big man with a big laugh. A former creative exec at Paramount, Tom is now on the outside looking in, struggling to establish himself as a screenwriter. He's no one at the moment, but in a few years, he'll hit the big time as the white guy who wrote the breakthrough African-American film, New Jack City. His current project, he's been working on a mob memoir with Nick Marino, the owner of a chain of porno theaters in New York and a self-professed Italian gangster. In the course of his writing adventures with Nick, and they were adventures, let me tell you, Tom, like me, a huge fan of Godfather 1 and 2, has learned what the mafia has been up to in the years following those dramatized in the movies. As a result, he and Nick have put their original project aside to concentrate on writing a treatment for Godfather 3, a project Paramount has put in cold storage after years of fruitless attempts to develop a satisfactory storyline. This is the occasion of our lunch. Tom, knowing my love of the Coppola epic, wants me to read the treatment and offer any suggestions I might have before he submits it to Dawn Steele. I take the piece home that evening and read it. I'm blown away. It's the story of the Corleone family coping with change, forced to hire out jobs to the Irish, the Mexicans, the blacks, and to deal with threats from within and without. It portrays the gradual seduction of Michael's innocent son, Anthony, the murder of Michael himself by his sister, Connie, and the family's move into Atlantic City. I call up Tom and I tell him he's nailed it, but I insist he's not giving the treatment to Dawn Steele, he's giving it to me. I'm young, I tell him. I'm hungry. I promise him that I will set the project up at Paramount. Now all I have to do is deliver. I go to work. I engage in a lot of backroom politics, and starting with Dawn Steele, I win the support of everyone in the room at the Monday morning meeting of the creative group. Everyone, that is, but Ned. He looks at me hard. I'm opposed to it, he says. Projects like this are money pits. I fall into deep depression. Ned continues. Francis is a madman. Brilliant, but a madman who can't be controlled. You can't use him. And you can't have any of the original cast except Pacino. It would be just too damned expensive. Wait a second. Wait a second. Just, what's he saying here? He goes on. It's your picture. You go make it. Oh my God. Ned has just approved the revival of Godfather 3, and he's put me, the new kid on the block, in charge. As I leave the room, he asks, you're sure Tom can write this thing? You've read his other work. Oh yeah, I lie. He's got what it takes. I have at this point never read anything else that Tom has written. But I have every confidence that if what he comes up with sucks, I'll be able to help him fix it, even if I have to write it myself. I call Tom. He's ecstatic, and so am I. And then I meet his collaborator. Nick Marino arrives on the lot in a white Rolls Royce. He's wearing an ice cream suit. He's almost as wide as he is tall, and he talks like this. I can't vouch for his claim to be mafia, but legit or not, Central Casting could not have done a better job. Tom and I escort him to the Paramount Commissary Garden, and in these elegant surroundings, we chat about Godfather 3. It's all very relaxed and cordial, until I mention Ned's insistence that we cannot have Coppola or any of the original stars, but Pacino. Sudden silence. Nick gives me a steely look. Then, with his eyes locked on mine, well, Dan, you remember that line in Godfather 1 about making you an offer you can't refuse? I like ours in Godfather 3. If I can't deal with you, I'll deal with your estate. Oh my. He's threatening to have me rubbed out over casting and direction. He keeps his eyes fixed on mine, the silence hanging heavy over the table. Finally, I managed to stutter if the screenplay's good enough, Ned will undoubtedly relent and bring back not just Coppola, but all of his actors. The tension at the table relaxes, and we chat amiably through the rest of the lunch. But as I bid Nick goodbye, I have a vision of returning home that evening and finding a horse's bloody head snuggled in my bed. This is clearly going to be an interesting ride, one that I hope will not end up in some garbage dump in the Bronx. Well, not long after this encounter, I got a call from Jeffrey Katzenberg at Disney. He's read a spec script I wrote and wants to offer me a 3-picture deal as an in-house screenwriter. On the one hand, there's that handsome horse's head and a reservation at the local landfill. On the other, a new life as a screenwriter. What to do? What to do? It's a tough choice, but as a longtime fan of Falstaff and his wise observation that discretion is the better part of valor, I choose Disney over the landfill, the screenwriting deal over the horse's head. And so it was that I left Paramount before Tom and Nick submitted their screenplay. Don replaced me as the executive in charge of the project, and Nick eventually got his wish. Coppola was, in fact, attached to the project, not just as director, but as one of the writers as well. He and Mario Puzo replaced Tom and Nick throughout their draft and began anew, creating the blueprint for what eventually became Godfather 3. It was an abomination. So bad that it compromises the achievement of Godfathers 1 and 2. It turns out that my God had feet of clay, that he was, in fact, all too human, that he not only wrote a weak screenplay unworthy of its predecessors, but as a fond father, made the disastrous mistake of of casting his inexperienced daughter in a key role. And for all of this, I am heartily sorry.